I'm upset because I really don't think it's fair. She did her job, she did what was right, and we need her as a judge, somebody with morals.
And so he's sending a message to all police officers: you no longer are autonomous, you no longer have discretion, and he's sending a message to all people in this country that if there is a public safety concern that is born from the hands of the government, that there will be no accountability for the government. And fundamentally, that tells us that rule of law is dead here in Canada.
It's Judgment Day for diligent Detective Helen Grus for the crime of her probe into a doubling or tripling of sudden infant deaths in the Ottawa region following the rollout of the modified RNA COVID-19 shots. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini at the Ottawa Police Service's Kanata location, just on the outskirts of Ottawa. And I'm here today to cover Detective Helen Grus's sentencing hearing. It is Judgment Day for the diligent detective that decided to look into this suspicious increase, a 2 to 3-fold increase in sudden infant deaths in the region following the rollout of the COVID-19 modified RNA vaccines. And now for this crime, she has been charged with discreditable conduct for what the hearings officer, Chris Renwick, called an unauthorized probe clouded by her personal bias about vaccine injury or reactions and improperly accessing the RMS database. That's the records management system utilized by police. Now, Detective Helen Grus was working at the time in the SACA unit. That's the Sexual Assault and Child Abuse Unit within the OPS, and they are mandated by law to investigate and probe any sudden deaths in children under the age of 5 that happen outside of the hospital setting. I have covered this story in these proceedings over the course of the last 4 years. And if you want to see more reports on this topic and this file and support this kind of journalism, please do so at nomoreshots.ca. Now, today we heard that Detective Grus will be demoted from a first class to a second class constable for a period spanning 24 months, 2 years, which will also come with a pay decrease to her salary. She has already suffered great financial loss as a result of these hearings, and her lawyer, Bathsheba Vandenberg, will also be giving comments because we also heard that they're going to appeal this entire fiasco. Have a listen.
This just goes to the absurdity of the discreditable charge itself, where there were multiple elements and many of them which are nonsensical. I believe a lot of the wording that he used today was hyperbole in order to send an inflammatory message to justify this seriousness of misconduct. He also used the word seriousness several times, as if the word itself is going to convince people to believe that what Detective Helen Grus was seriously wrong, which it was not. What is seriously wrong is the decision. What is seriously wrong is the fact that the Ottawa Police Service has stopped a potential criminal investigation into potential criminal negligence of persons involved in advocating and mandating a COVID-19 vaccination that we know was not safe for pregnant and breastfeeding women. And we know that there were, and that's based on the evidence of the tribunal and what I've read, at least 5 babies that deceased, that passed away in circumstances identical to those listed on the Pfizer clinical data reports itself.
What did you think of Renwick's decision here today? Not surprising? Anything that stood out to you?
Not surprising, unfortunately. The 2-year demotion, as you know, it stood out to me that he kept repeating himself over and over and over again. I'm sure you were in there, you heard it. It seems like everything that he said could have been said in the first 15 minutes. And I was doing other things for a lot of the later half, but I noticed every almost, I'm going to say 7th sentence, probably less, but it was like you're blinded by your vaccine bias and clouded your judgment. He just kept inserting that phrase over and over and over again, and it felt forced. It felt like the logic in his decision was nonsensical.
I wasn't inside to hear the verdict, but I do know that people with morals that speak out and speak the truth are being silenced, because I'm one of them. We try to stand up for what's right in this country, and every step you take, you get knocked backwards. So that's my moral. We need to start working and standing together.
9 babies died, and 2 babies died in their mother's arms over a 7-month period, and the investigation was shut down. And I believe it was shut down because if you see this here, this is still on Health Canada's website, and it says that it's safe to take while you're pregnant, and it doesn't lower fertility. And apparently Canada's still doing ongoing studies. And look into all this here. They made pregnant women take this. They made organ transplant people take this. Fauci lied, people died. Dr. Tam lied, and people died. And she lied too. So we need accountability.
For the vaccine clinical trials didn't include pregnant women, certainly these initial clinical trials. But there's no biological reason why the vaccine wouldn't be effective and safe during pregnancy.
And you know what? They demoted a police officer who was investigating why two babies died in their mother's arms. And it's very rare that a baby will die in their mother's arms. And she wondered why there was a tripling of babies dying. And you know what? We have a public interest into knowing why babies died. Just imagine, if 9 babies died in Ottawa and they shut the investigation down, how many babies died in Vancouver? How many died in Halifax? We still got questions about this. So this ongoing studies, we need to look into this and open this investigation up and not shut it down. I believe it's a cover-up because of Health Canada, and I believe OPS shut it down for that reason.
Detective Grus, just on the lack of responsibility that Officer Renwick said you were taking for this alleged misconduct, what would your message be in response to that?
My message has remained the same. I swore an oath to protect the public, preserve life, preserve the peace. And I will continue to do that each and every day. So when he touched on that, again, it leaves me baffled. It's surreal because I swore to be an officer for reasons to help people, and I will continue doing that.
And I just want to add to that, that was very wrong. It's an error in law. He mentioned the lack of remorse for 4 factors. The case law is very clear that an adjudicator cannot use a factor of remorse or lack of remorse in their decision making because a police officer has the right to believe that they are innocent. They have a right to a defense. That's why there was so much that was said today that is a total dismantling of fair process, of rule of law. Every police officer should really be up in arms about this decision because now it's going to be used as binding and as a leading case law for future police disciplinary processes.
If the police actually held the people who should be held responsible, Detective Grus would not be facing internal discipline, and there would be a whole lot more people in trouble who deserve to be, not Detective Grus. She's such a rare example of an officer doing the right thing, using their training, using their integrity and so-called independence, which we heard over and over again in the disciplinary decision today.
I'm upset because I really don't think it's fair. She did her job, she did what was right, and we need her as a judge, somebody with morals.
Renwick's, ultimately, he was hoping these proceedings and this decision would deter any future officers from conducting a similar investigation, especially if it has political overtones, was the exact wording that he used. What kind of effect will that have on policing moving forward?
More importantly is what kind of effect will this have on public safety? Now, interestingly, in his March 25th, 2025 decision, he quoted a criminal case called the Crown and Beaupre. I invite everybody to read that because that case actually specifically says that police independence and discretion is the foundation of our rule of law and public safety, and that executives cannot interfere with police independence and discretion. And so he's sending a message to all police officers, you no longer are autonomous, you no longer have discretion, and he's sending a message to all people in this country that if there is a public safety concern that is born from the hands of the government, that there will be no accountability for the government. And fundamentally, that tells us that rule of law is dead here in Canada.
That's powerful. Now, what's next? Because we heard that there is potentially more legal action to come.
Yes, so my intention is to appeal both the decision, the March 2025 decision in 2025, and today's disposition.
Yes, we've already drafted multiple grounds of appeal, so we will add to that the appeal grounds with regard to today's penalty decision, and we will be filing that very, very soon, along with an application for fresh evidence.
And then moving forward, I guess just what's your message to everybody that's standing here today that came out with their signs and to show a hand of support?
I am blown away with all the support, and I'm very, very gracious for all the support and the prayers. The prayers are coming in not only locally, nationally, but internationally, and I am forever grateful for that. My call to people is look to God. There's many religions out there, faiths, but for me, God guides me each and every day. I know that I'm never alone, obviously not, but in those moments that I might be somewhere secluded in a little office space where things sometimes do, I'm human, sometimes things do fall on me and it gets quite depressing, but that knowledge that we have a greater power in control, people need to look to that. Treat each other with kindness, respect, compassion each and every day. When we have differences of opinion, communicate them in a respectful manner so that we can help fix things and move forward.
Any final comments before we wrap up?
I want to say that I have a background in international criminal law, and it takes time, sometimes 10, 20, 30 years until you get justice. And how we get there is by you, the people, never giving up, always fighting and believing that the truth will come out and justice will be served.